Is there a real estate bubble in the Bay Area? No, but there is now a real estate bundle in the Bay Area. That's right, Bundle Select. Hi, this is Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. I've been on the air and in the media educating and informing consumers for over 7 years now. I'm excited to introduce Bundle Select, which allows consumers to bundle all of their real estate services online, simplifying the process while averaging a savings of 20% or more. That's right, Bundle Select helps buyers and sellers streamline real estate, lending, and title. In addition, our concierge service will coordinate the entire transaction for you, so you benefit by working with the same team, saving time, and saving money. You'll not only be working with the most qualified, hand-picked experts, but you will also save a significant amount of money in all three services as well. Act now and take advantage of this opportunity in the Bay Area. Go to bundleselect.com. That's bundleselect.com. Again, bundleselect.com.
Real estate broker Cal BRE 004666902. Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Kuchera, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Kuchera.
All right, here we go. We are live. Welcome in, Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. We're continuing through the week. We're excited to continue the series that Jack and I started almost a month or so ago, and it's going to be starting something in Silicon Valley. This is part 4, and I'll get started in just a minute. Just a reminder before we get underway, for any information, you can always go to reradiolive.com. If you'd like to reach me during the week, it is 408-838-9060, or you can always email joe@reradiolive.com. Most of you know that the focus of the show is education and information, although we're excited to announce some variations to this. We brought Jack in about a month or so ago, and this is part 4 of our series. It's going to continue, and that's starting something in the Silicon Valley, specifically for those that are tuning in. We make sure that there's no confusion. This is really to educate people, Jack, on Silicon Valley, entrepreneurship, startups. We tried to start right from the beginning. We'll probably bounce around a little bit, but give us kind of an overview of what people could expect.
Right. So I'm Jack Russo. The law firm is Computer Law Group. The website is www.computerlaw.com. I did get a few questions, which I'll answer and weave into the sort of summary of where we're going, because we're really at stage 4. So stage 1, we talked about sort of the general concepts of how do you get some ideas going, and people said, well, what's your notebook system? So I actually brought in the books. You can see them. So I've got a red book that I use for what I call kind of urgent, serious, and upsetting things like, oh, my tax returns are due and better take some notes about those. I've got a black book that's really the daily grind, and you can see it's pretty thick and it's got a lot of other papers in it. That's really kind of about running a law firm, running the side little venture firm we have, running the little real estate firm that we have, all those things that we run out of this black book. The black and the red are really business life. Purple is really about doing things that are good for your family. And so you have to have a purple book. Now, it may not be purple, but it's not black or red either. It's not black or white, I was saying. It's gray. It probably should be gray, but this one's purple because these were on sale at Stanford Bookstore for 99 cents each, like probably an 80% discount of what the prices usually are. So you could buy these 4 books. You know, in my world, maybe 7 eventually, but you could buy at least these 4 for under $5 with tax. And then I've got a green book that are about all the things I do that are rejuvenating to me. So today, for example, I was a temporary judge pro tem in the Superior Court helping to settle a complicated case that the government had brought against some real estate investors.
Really?
New story. We'll leave that for the future.
Okay.
And, you know, you spend 3 hours giving pro bono service to the court, and it's really rejuvenating. Even though there's no fee made, you're building goodwill back in the community,
right,
and people just know that you're giving back to the community. I think everyone should have a green book. Everyone should have a purple book for family. Everyone should have a green book for self. Everyone should have a black book for those are the things that really you do in the daily grind. And everyone should have a red book for those things that are upsetting. And then weekly, go through these books and you're trying to minimize the red, to some degree delegate the black, focus on the purple and the green. Yeah. So now I also brought in, because people say, that's crazy, you're disorganized, that's a lot of paper, all true. You could buy one of these. In fact, I bought it just for demonstrative purposes. You could buy this beautiful notepad. This one's very special because it actually comes with an electronic pen. These are available now, and these pens allow you to write in these specially created books.
That's right.
That transfer the data automatically to an iPad or an iPhone or a smartphone or one of these Android devices, and it's actually a lightweight pen. This has a huge amount of memory in it. So as you write, it's taking notes both in pen in the book and electronically. So you've got an automatic backup if you lose things. As I said, for my money, I actually like the old-fashioned paperweight, but for the high-tech crowd, which the Facebook crowd tends to be, you could go, this one is the Neo Smart Pen. There's lots of them on the market. I don't know what the price is, maybe $100 or so. You can buy this. It's online. I'm not part of that company, but I think it's done a reasonable job of enabling those notes.
Makes sense.
But remember, what you're doing is you're coming up with an idea that you're flushing out and you're focusing your brain. And this gets us to the second step. Once you have the idea, you've got to try to start thinking about how do you build a domain name, potentially a website, an app. How do you build new value that focuses that idea? So when they came up with this pen, they said, well, we want it to write with ink. So that's obviously not going to be patentable because we all have pens, although they've been improved. For my money, this is one of the better ones, the Pilot pen. There's lots of versions of it. But they wanted to come up with something that was lightweight, and we started talking about, well, can you actually do something? I mean, it's roughly the same size, the same weight. Can you do something that can advance something that's been around for hundreds of years? And that starts to focus the mind on, well, we'd have to have it have memory, we'd have to have it have this, and then you start thinking about packaging, because often these things sell more, frankly, on the packaging than they do on the actual utility. And so they said, well, we're going to come up with some red and black to create a look. We're going to come up with a stylus. Maybe this could be packaged to include a little stylus for the iPad that you're going to have with this, because it takes kind of a setup to do this electronically. A smartphone, an iPad, the pad that they sell, which is kind of like the razor blades going into the razor. They can give away these pens and sell a lot of these pads and make a fortune, and that's a business model. So you're already starting to think, I've got the idea, I've got the domain name. They chose the domain Neo Smart Pen. They must have gotten the .com, or now these days a lot of people are going with .io or .ai. They get those domains, they register or reserve what's called an intent to use trademark or service mark. A lot of people forget to do that, and then, oops, I'm stepping on somebody else's toes because they came in ahead of me. And they start doing some detailed design work. And, of course, it could be a hardware device, or more of what we see is combined hardware and software, or just software, pure software. And I get these calls all the time. Well, I have this pure software idea. I flushed it out. Can I protect it? And, of course, we've got a lot of law now on whether or not you can protect software as an invention in the patent office. It's in disarray. But there's enough there for a good lawyer to look at it and say, let's create an overall IP strategy. And now we're at the third discussion we had, which is building a strategy that is not reliant on just one class of IP. So building a strategy that has trade secret rights, patent rights, copyright rights, trade dress rights, trademark rights, industrial design rights, whatever you can bake into this to build more value. So that notebook is recording it. And as you do those steps, the value of your entity increases. And now we're at the place where perhaps you filed a provisional patent application. You've protected the intent to use trademarks and service marks. You've gotten the domain names. And you've also taken some steps towards actually building a prototype.
So our listeners are sticking with it. You're really taking us, putting together a roadmap, taking us through how you assign value and how to build the IP around this.
Right. So think about it as years and years ago, people often thought you have to have some land to actually plant something in the land to produce something to harvest to sell in a market.
Right.
And then you could say there's an abundance of whatever you're doing. The latest story I heard historically was an abundance of zucchinis, and they took the zucchinis and said, we got to get rid of some of them before they rot. Let's exchange them for eggs.
Right.
And that was the beginning of a market-based economy. We're living in an economy that's so far beyond that. It's an idea-based economy. It's a invention-based economy. So the product of your mind now is the equivalent of planting the seed.
Okay.
The paper represents the land or the electronic storage or whatever you want to store the idea on, because a pure idea that goes unexpressed is vapor.
Right.
It just escapes into the air and it becomes like never happened.
This is your personal canvas.
You have to treat it like it's your land.
Yeah, right. Okay.
You're planting those seeds. You're focusing your attention on nurturing those seeds. You're talking to people. A big point you made over several of these conversations is trusted individuals, maybe trusted board advisors, maybe even trusted initial investors when you can convince them.
Right.
They take a stake in helping you because people do want to help you succeed. And they'll say, the pen is a little too fat, or the pen is a little too thin, or the pen is a little too heavy, or can you get a brand like Pilot or Cross or, Mont Blanc? Wow, if you can get Mont Blanc to put its brand on this thing will take off like a rocket. This is the future Mont Blanc type pen with the special button that's kind of the trade dress of Mont Blanc. People are just going to want to have that to keep it in their pocket, just like a Rolex watch. So theoretically, what you're doing is you're building value, and then when you go to the investors, the initial ones may get a much better deal than the future ones. Yes, this business is now valued at $10 million, and they're like, you just started it 6 months ago. And you're like, yeah, I've done a lot of work in 6 months. In fact, I heard a pitch yesterday where these guys are working on a new cryptocurrency. And it's two brothers. They're smart guys. Both of them have degrees in computer science. And they're like, yeah, we think the valuation of our little company is like at least $50 million. And I said, 6 months ago. They're like, yeah, but we've done a lot of work, and we've got a cryptocurrency, and people are trading it, and we've got a whole plan for giving back. We have a plan for an element of the profits going to charities. I mean, they built something with their ideas into something different than just pure Bitcoin and different than all the other coins, Litecoin and Ethereum and all the other ones that are out there. And they're literally saying we're going to have a currency, a cryptocurrency, a blockchain-based currency that is partially non-profit. New idea.
Yeah. Who established the rationalization for that? I guess in some ways it's a guess. You have some people that says in this example it's worth $50 million.
Yes.
The investors are going to say, show me, tell me how.
Most investors will be like, show me why the progression of users should be so ramped up.
Right.
And so some of it might be, we started 6 months ago and we already have 100,000 users. I mean, Facebook, when it started, it didn't immediately take off. I mean, it was a little internal to Harvard. I mean, there's a movie about this that tells the whole story. It was an internal little way to kind of compare potential people to date and whether their faces were better or not. And that became outside the Harvard project. It became like, well, maybe we could turn this into something. There actually was a social program already on the market.
That's right.
A couple of them that Facebook blew over because they're ramped so quickly. And people still think it's got a lot of ramp left. Even with, hundreds of millions of people on it, they still think it's going to become a billion. I mean, we've got, I guess, 8 billion people on the planet. there's a belief all of them will be connected someday.
We're going to take a break in just a minute. Before we do that, though, so who is this? Just an evaluation? Someone assigns that, they bring it to the investors, the advisors, and then I guess it's ultimately up to them to negotiate potentially. Well, we think it's this, or how does that go?
So unlike real estate, where we have a formal appraisal type person who's trained, licensed, gives a report, shows comps, does something that seems more accurate, certainly more accurate for something relatively hard to appraise, like what's the value of this property with these acreage around it and so many bedrooms and so many square feet. And I keep seeing Palo Alto. The latest one I saw was literally a dumpy place for $2,000 a square foot. I had said to the real estate broker, it was a convenient walk from my office. So I said, this would be really convenient. She says, yeah, that's why it gets $2,000 a square foot.
That's right.
But so in the venture community, the angel community, it is essentially a word of mouth process. Three things typically drive the whole thing. Can you believe that this CEO founder is a real leader who can be the equivalent of Elon Musk someday, or the equivalent of Steve Jobs, or some other great type person that people idolize? Number two, does he have a team behind him? So typically it's not a solo person. Typically it's a group. Typically there's a team. Typically there's a board of advisors, maybe a board of directors, maybe a few people that have sort of thrown in the towel with him or committed to him or her. And then the third thing is, are they in a market? Are they in a market that seems to be growing rapidly? And it's almost like the invention doesn't matter if you have those three things. Now, I have to tell you,
that's a really good point.
If you're in a market right now, cryptocurrencies are so hot. I've not seen this that I can remember historically. I may remember when the whole app business took off, but I've not seen the valuation increases that I'm now seeing with cryptocurrencies. But at the end of the day, you could say to yourself, why does this happen? Because people see markets as evolving things where all of a sudden people want to pay a lot of money to get in. And if they believe the leader and the team are smart people who will manage around the obstacles in that market and will find the sweet spot to deliver value, it almost doesn't matter if their first product or first service fails. It's like they're going to take another swing at the bat. They're going to be a plan B. There's going to be a plan C. They're going to figure it out. And in fact, there's a good book worth reading by Peter Thiel. You may not like his writing, but he's got some content. It's called 0 to 1, where he says, the founder is often a really weird person. He's not an average person. He's like someone out of either an extreme introvert or extreme extrovert, and he or she can cause change. And if you get the right people around that person, and they're in the right market. So obviously he was lucky enough to be in eBay. He was lucky enough to be in PayPal.
Good track record.
And he was lucky enough to do some really smart things in terms of where he took the investment. I think part of it he planted into a Roth IRA, so all the gain became tax-free. There's all this great additional planning you can do. But when you're raising money, the right person with the right team in the right market often makes a huge difference in valuation.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Stick with us, those on Facebook. Today we're talking with Jack Russo with the Computer Law Group. Again, the series is Starting Something in Silicon Valley. This is part 4. Stick with us. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with you in about a minute.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com.
The world is changing, and so is real estate. It's changing in a way that gives consumers more control, a better use of technology, and guaranteed savings. Hi, this is Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. I've been on the air and in the media educating and informing consumers for over 7 years now. I'm excited to introduce Bundle Select, which allows consumers to bundle all of their real estate services online, simplifying the process while averaging a savings of 20% or more. That's right, Bundle Select helps buyers and sellers streamline real estate, lending, lending, and title. In addition, our concierge service will coordinate the entire transaction for you, so you benefit by working with the same team, saving time and saving money. You'll not only be working with the most qualified, hand-picked experts, but you will also save a significant amount of money in all three services as well. Act now and take advantage of this opportunity in the Bay Area. Go to bundleselect.com. That's bundleselect.com. Again, bundleselect.com.
Real estate broker Cal BRE 00466902. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's topic or guests, just visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Joe Kuchera.
Welcome back in. Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. We're continuing the show here today with Jack Russo, who is the managing partner with the Computer Law Group in Palo Alto. Jack is talking today about starting something in Silicon Valley. This is an ongoing series. Again, I'll remind everybody, the best thing to do is to download the podcast and follow the podcast. Because of Jack's schedule, we try to have him on at least once a week, or once a week, I would say. It may be every other 2 weeks, but there's no regular schedule because of everybody's schedule. So best thing to do is stay tuned, of course, to Facebook. Keep following us there. But more importantly, download the podcast. You could do that at iTunes. Just type in Real Estate Radio Live. Or you could always go to our website, reradiolive.com. Or just go to good old Google and type in Real Estate Radio Live, and all this will come up. And be sure to do that. Continue to share the show with those as well. All right, Jack, when we took the first break, you were, again, kind of assessing and putting together assigning IP and what that means. And I think when we were just finishing up, you were talking about how important it was the right team, the right person, and how sometimes the founders and co-founders are some weird dudes.
and part of what's being evaluated is the synergy,
right,
and do they add value or they subtract value? So the right people all have different skills. They're a diverse team that complement each other. So you really don't want people that are all alike.
Right.
In some ways, the diversity really does help. And when those people come together, 1 and 1 is often much greater than 3. Mm-hmm. It really does mean that they're energized to get to a goal. So Elon Musk is a good example because everyone knows his name. He starts a company that electrifies cars, then he buys a company, Solar City, that electrifies homes, and now he's talking about a business separate from those businesses. I guess Tesla with Solar
right.
City is one company, but now he's got a business that is trying to launch rockets to Mars SpaceX.
Yeah.
And that's a leader that can get in front of a team, and that team is super motivated for a mission. Right. And the mission becomes doable because he's such a good, or she is such a good cheerleader and visionary and inspires people to get the best potential out of them as a team, mm-hmm. doing something that otherwise seemed impossible.
Right.
That's a big statement. And when you identify that person, indeed, you'll see lawyers try to identify them as clients and just hang on to them. Yeah. We call them serial entrepreneurs because they are going to do more than one swing for the Grand Slam winning, and they know that not every at bat is going to be a home run, and certainly not every home run is going to be a Grand Slam. So they often attract networks of people around them, which will yield far more progress far more quickly. Mm-hmm. And if that can be expressed, and I often see a slide deck, and I look at the deck well before any investor does, because I see stuff that's literally in the garage, and I say, you're not even presenting your best presentation. It should not even be about anything other than the team and the disruptive opportunity in this particular market that has so much fat in it. Like we've talked about this in real estate. It's a lot. No disrespect for real estate brokers. I know they work hard. Real estate lawyers will say they work even harder. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of commission. And when I talk to lawyers in the UK, they just laugh at me. In London, I have friends in London, and the commission rates are far lower. And they say, we don't know why you guys tolerate that. Why do you tolerate a 5% commission on a the last property was a $3 million property, 1,500 square feet, 2,000 a square foot. There's going to be $150,000, and you know that the documents are going to be punched out on some forms, and mostly lawyers are not even used these days. I'm licensed in New York as well, and New York requires lawyers at the closing. And no lawyer is even going to read that paperwork. It's all punched out. Sometimes it's correct. Sometimes it isn't. A lot of deals just get done and it goes through. But at the end of the day, the question is, why has that industry not yet been disrupted? And different people have been talking about it for a while. And sometimes it just takes a lot of attacks before finally there's a break-in and all of a sudden things change. And we're seeing that in lots of different businesses.
Yeah, we are.
And it's going to continue to happen. So the point I wanted to make about finding the right investors, the team will attract, hopefully, the right complementary investors. And the biggest piece of advice, and you'll see in a lot of books, finding an investor the right investors is often as hard, if not harder, than finding the right spouse. Let me repeat that. Finding the right initial investors, and people like to say, if the initial investors are wrong, you'll never be able to fix it because the price of the divorce will defeat the entire startup. So you'll talk to a lot of people, and they'll tell you, I had a client yesterday that said, yeah, I would have been really rich, but then I went through, I guess it turned out to be my third divorce, and whatever was gained over time was lost to legal fees and to divorce proceedings. And he just says, in this case it was a he, but I've seen even the she version of it, a lot of money was paid up in transaction costs and getting out of a bad relationship. And it was probably a bad relationship for the other person as well. And they would say the same thing, which is it's unfortunate if you don't use some savvy in who you choose. So they really have to tolerate that it may be a much longer period of time. And I see this often. I saw this years ago in the .com period. There were many real estate investors that rushed into these .com investments thinking, oh, I'm going to see some cash flow because this is like an apartment building, right? And you'd say, no, it's not like an apartment building. It's actually the opposite. You're putting money in hoping that there'll be some software at the end of it that can actually be marketed. And it may not turn out. The dogs may not eat the dog food. That's crazy. Don't you actually guarantee? I mean, look, a real estate person has dirt and they put a foundation down and we can visit the project and see the sticks going up. That's not the way software works.
How would you suggest people, how do you have a better chance of finding the right investors? Is that just, advising with people like yourself or close people around you, people you trust, assessing, looking, contacting your network? I've went through that exercise before. We're going to talk more about that in future programs. But what would your suggestion be for someone like, oh my God, that's just a daunting task?
It's a daunting task, and there are a lot of people that send a lot of form emails out to lists that they can buy and you can get it off of websites like TechCrunch. There's a number of them online that literally provide lists of venture firms. And if you talk to venture partners, they're like, if we get an unsolicited email, we just ignore it. We treat it like that's a crazy. Now, occasionally they might get something that would so interest them, but I think it is a little bit like a form letter. You get a form letter, you're not interested. It is very much a personal contact approach. So you want to be in the right place at the right time. So all these conferences that exist. So I think the formula a lot of people talk about, I'm not sure it absolutely works, but we might as well spend a minute. The world has changed in the VC world. VCs are no longer starting companies, period. VCs are funding companies that are in growth scaling stage. The people that are starting companies are angel investors, and even them, to some degree, want to see a company that's gone through some incubation or quasi-incubation. What do I mean by that? Formal incubators now exist. Y Combinator, 500 Startups. There's one across the street from our office called Something Guild. There's probably 100 of them at this point. And they take money, which they rightfully should, from startup teams, and then they groom them. and they take them essentially through an advanced version of the set of classes you're giving, but with a lot of mentoring of, you guys are fighting over something stupid. Titles are not important. I can't believe you're fighting over titles. That's going to play very poorly. This is just a small example. They try to get them to a point where they actually have some proof of concept.
Right.
And what are they doing for the proof of concept? They're using the same group of people in the incubator. Now, that's a pretty rarefied group. Right. It's a little bit like, I say this all the time to Stanford professors, when you use your students as the guinea pigs for your surveys, that's not real world data. That's just a bunch of students that want to make sure they get a good grade. So of course they're not going to tell you that your idea is a POS, piece of you can figure it out. They're not going to tell you that. So be real about using real people, and that's why I like to say, for my money, if a group comes in and they've been smart enough to do some focus group of real people, I mean, you can find them on Craigslist. You may have to pay them a few bucks. You can use other tools online. You can use SurveyMonkey to do some unsolicited surveys and get some real data. Do people want a new electronic pen? Maybe. And maybe what you're going to find out, it's only the wacky lawyer that has used all these colored books for the last 50 years of his life that says, yeah, I'll try that because I'm dealing with all this paper. Or maybe you find out it's really the dot-comer that doesn't want any paper, wants a completely electronic world, and never wants to carry a notebook and just wants a very thin kind of fit in my little mini backpack kind of view. So that focus group tells you a little bit about your market. And segmenting your market, because sometimes this stuff plays to a particular segment. Right. And it won't play anywhere else.
That's a good point. I mean, sometimes it's when someone comes in and speaks to it's a $400 billion market, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's ready for a product or a service, right?
That's right. There are a lot of people. I mean, if I said to my mom, God bless her, 87 years old, hey, Mom, will you start writing in this little electric notepad because I can wire it to send me updates of what you're writing? She's like, are you crazy? What do I have to do? I have to charge this? I have to put batteries in it or plug it in somewhere? She might write in a notebook like this. Of course, I won't be able to see it. So if you want some notes from your mom, you may have to visit her more often.
All right, we're just about out of time. Before we get Duck out of here, so we covered today about kind of putting together the value proposition around IP. How do you schedule that? How to put together a team? All difficult stuff. We'll continue talking about this. If someone wants to reach you during the week or when you're not on the show, what's the best way to do that?
So Jack at computerlaw.com is the easiest, JCK at computerlaw.com, or 650-327-9800. I did want to say one other thing about investors. You do want to make sure you're talking at the early stage with qualified, meaning what are sometimes called accredited investors. Why? You cannot sell unregistered securities to the public generally. There's lots of exceptions or ways to do it. But you can sell unregistered securities, which is really what a share of stock is, or a share of an LLC, or even kind of a share of a business opportunity, or what's sometimes called an investment contract. You have to make sure that they are people who could sustain the loss, which means they have to have a net worth and they have to pass certain tests. Now, how do you make sure they pass these tests? You send them a very simple form. It's online. You could search for it, Accredited Investor Questionnaire. And it essentially forces them to write their name, their address, that they own their house, hopefully, that they have a net worth of a certain size, that they make a certain amount of income, and that they could sustain the loss. If that person you're talking to is not willing to confirm, in fact, there are even people that say you're supposed to double check this by verifying that that address is theirs, and there are actually tools on the market that allow you to do that, then you may be dealing with a completely unqualified person, which if the investment fails, they're going to say, well, that was my life savings. I need that money back. Those are the worst cases, and those are the worst investors. So when there's a mismatch between the investor and the founder or the founding team, that is a recipe for an ugly divorce.
Boy, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. All right, we're going to wrap up for today. Jack, thanks for your time again.
Thank you.
Next week or so, we'll be back again for part 5 of the series. Remember, also, if you need to reach Jack, he's permanently on our website. If you go to reradiolive.com, that's for more information. And be sure to download the podcast. Thanks for those following us on Facebook. We'll be back with you next time.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at reradiolive.com.